Patrick, if this was a football match of two halves, the first half was really good. Went through the Middle East, talked about terrorism, there were some successful business deals there as well. I think most people would turn around and say there was a series of successes. Then he arrives in Europe, and as soon as the conversation moves away from foreign policy and gets to trade, the divisions come back up again. Is that where the big divisions still exist?
Well, even on foreign policy, there's the whole Russia issue. And there was some comments, I think Cohen yesterday said that, that they don't have a view on whether, the U.S. doesn't have a view on whether the G7 should maintain its sanctions against Russia. And there were some European officials yesterday who said that there was not a common view. You know, it's a diplomatic understatement, but it's a serious gap on what is a very awkward issue for Donald Trump.
In fairness, we've had a lot of G7 meetings and not paid much attention to them. I mean, they've been reasonably like milquetoast, right? This one, there's a lot of focus on, perhaps for a broader reason. Is there some chance, risk, danger that, in fact, longer-term relations with Europe, with UK, that affect trade and investment, things that could really affect the global economy if we start diverging our paths?
There is. I think that markets have learned to not overreact to whatever Donald Trump says or tweets on a given day. You know, it used to be that if he tweeted something, the market, you'd see an immediate response. Now they're saying, well, let's wait and see what actually happens. But these are serious issues. I mean, I've written a lot about how Germans' chronic surpluses are a problem, and it's a problem for Germany as well as the rest of the world. But there are ways that you can raise these issues among friends that nudge friends in a certain direction, and there are other ways that you could raise it that damage the friendship.
Well, I think what market participants have learned that the words are meaningful, but they need to be followed by policy. And if they aren't followed by policy, then it doesn't really matter. And 5-6 months ago, the words meant something to the market. And now the market sits here and investors sit here and think, well, OK, target Germany's trade surplus, target BMW, etc. But you're going to follow it up with any policies. And I think it kind of falls on deaf ears now. I don't think people think the policy is going to come.
It's the key question, especially with a country like Germany, which is inside the Eurozone. So how do you attack that? It's not a currency question. It's a matter of the way they run their government and the way they run their economy. You talk about it. Remember, we went through in the 1980s in particular the twin deficits, the trade deficit and the budget deficit, and we used to send our presidents to G7 meetings, and they would always talk about there was always a line in the communique, you need to bring down the twin deficits. I was talking with Steve Roach, former Morgan Stanley, the other day, and he said the twin deficits are back because now we've got the trade issue and we've got the deficit issue, and we might start to see that return.
But Patrick, isn't there more than a little irony here that at a time where we finally are seeing reflation around the world, we're seeing some global growth after 8-9 years, lean years, now we're about to, it seems like, snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and start to have divergence and disagreement that could interfere with things like trade and investment?
That's entirely possible. And I think that the lack of a policy, you know, what we have are statements, and sometimes contradictory statements within the course of a few days or a few weeks from the Trump administration on policy, whether it's trade or other things. And these kind of summit meetings, whether it's with Europe or whether it's with China, are all about follow-up. And one of the obstacles to follow-up here is that the Trump administration is not staffed up. There is not a real trade team that goes below the top level that will follow up these issues and execute them.